Dabo Swinney speaks about his lack of use of the transfer portal. I'm still not sure if his comments about it are reassuring or cause even more concern.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Up, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can follow me over on X right here at I Am John Bivens. We will have a Twitter page for the Locked On Clemson coming out soon. We're excited about that. But yeah, I'm John Bivens. I'm your host of the show, Locked On Clemson. For your everydayers, you know me. You've known me by now. Been out doing this for about a month now here with Locked On. Been hosting a podcast for longer than that. We just recently joined the Locked On family. We are a credentialed media member of the Clemson University and some sports teams over there. Thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast at and over on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, you're getting three things. You're getting all sports, you're getting all passion, and you're getting all of the time. Every day bringing you stuff, all you need to know regarding Clemson sports and Clemson athletics. Today is Thursday, May 16th. We got a great episode for you today. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about Dabo's recent comments where he made it over on the ACCPM during the spring meetings about the transfer portal. Also, we got another episode of our Turbulent Thursdays, and we're going to wrap up the episode talking about somebody came out with their top 5 atmospheres in college football, and Clemson made the list. So we're going to dive into all that and so much more. It's going to be a great episode. But before we jump in, hey, we just want to say thanks. We've been with this podcast now with Locked On for about a month, and we've already seen growth. We've already seen some everydayers, those people that join in with us every day, Monday through Friday, joining us, leaving comments over on YouTube. We just want to say thank you. We appreciate you joining with us. I know sometimes when a podcast gets a new host, people leave, people stop watching just because they get faithful and loyal, and I understand that for sure. But I know Locked On Clemson had about a 6-month hiatus from the last host to now, and we're glad that you're with us. Hey, make sure you're sharing this. Let's continue growing this family. Let's continue growing our everydayers, our Locked On Clemson family, where we can grow together as a family, as a culture, just a group that loves Clemson sports and likes to talk about it. So we appreciate you joining us. Stay with us through the summer. This summer, we're going to keep bringing you episodes regularly, talking about all things Clemson and Clemson sports. Hey, we could use a favor. We'd really love to grow that subscriber count over to 1,000 on YouTube. So if you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're in audio format, if you listen to our podcast over on audio, help us out. Go to YouTube, check out some video content. We provide a little bit different things over there with some different content, different graphics, that kind of aspect. So drop a subscribe over on YouTube. That would be a lot of help. But let's dive in. If you're a fan of Clemson, if you're a fan of college football, you probably know where Clemson stands right now in the transfer portal. We are the only school in Division I or in FBS that is not a service academy, that did not bring in a transfer this year, that did not bring in some kind of transfer for the football season. Only one that wasn't a service academy. There was only 4: Air Force, Army, Navy, and Clemson. So one of the song, which one of these things just don't belong here? Sorry, some of y'all might not know Sesame Street, but if you do, that was beautiful, wasn't it? No, that was a good singing voice. Anyway, so Dabo Sweeney, right now ACC is having some spring meetings, and we're going to dive into what they're talking about and all that kind of stuff, because there's definitely some good stuff going on, but we'll do that in a later episode. For now, we want to talk about Dabo. He spoke out, and they asked him about being one of the only 4 universities, the only one that wasn't a service academy that brought in the transfers. And he had a topic, what he had to say, I found really interesting. I'm really excited. I have mixed reactions about what he said, so let's hear his quote. Here's what he said. He said it wasn't really necessarily an intentional thing, and this is regarding to being not bringing any transfers. He says there are a couple guys we looked at, but they've got to love you too. And then he goes on and said, honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys who will transfer in from high school. We like our guys. We like our starters. Here in this quote, I have mixed reactions. I love it, but it bothers me at the same time. The reasons why I love it, I love it because Dabo is Dabo, right? Dabo Sweeney is who he is. He's consistent, he's loyal, he's faithful, he loves his guys, he's sticking with his guys no matter what. That's who he is. A lot of coaches out there you see change. I'm thinking Brian Kelly. When Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame, here's a prime example of how coaches can change. Brian Kelly, when he was the head coach at Notre Dame, he did not have a Southern accent, right? He was a normal talking guy, maybe a little Northern accent, just talked like an average guy, and that's how he did at Notre Dame. As soon as he went to LSU, he immediately got a little Southern accent in him. He immediately picked it up. He changed who he was just because of where he was at. Could you imagine if I don't think Dabo would ever leave, but let's say worst case, Dabo went and he transferred to a school up north. Dabo right now has a real Southern accent, right? That real country boy accent. Could you imagine if he went to like Penn State and then he never would, but if he did and he just dropped the Southern accent, he went from talking how he does to a fine to up Northern talking, that more proper grammar, that proper talk. He'd get lit up, right? That would never happen. Coaches now in modern day have this tendency to kind of change who they are, to change their personality, to mesh their personality with whatever school they're at, to mesh it with the culture, to mesh it with what's going on, to change who they are based on what's popular, what's hot, what's going on in college football. Dabo Swinney is not that guy. Dabo Sweeney is who he is, and he's going to always be that guy. He's going to stay true into his faith. He's got roots in his Christian faith. He's going to stay true to that. He's going to stay true in his belief, and his job is not, his number one role is not to develop a great football program. His number one role is to help develop young men and young students to be great men and in life and successful not only on the field but off the field as well. That's his role, or that's his goal, and he'll tell you that all day long. Obviously, he wants to win, and he plays to win, and he's a great coach, but who he is who he is, and he stays that way. He's right now he's loyal. He's a guy that's loyal to his players. He rewards faithful players by being faithful to them. He's not, and a big thing I think that he doesn't use transfer portal. He's not going to give a scholarship to a transfer if that means he has to take it away from someone he's already promised it to. He's honest. He's trustworthy. He's going to keep his promises. If he promises a player a scholarship, he's going to give him a scholarship. He's not going to take it away from him because a guy comes in on a transfer. Also, I think a big reason what he's saying here is like transfers, they have this attitude nowadays that they come in and they make they want this promise and a commitment's made to them. They want to go to the school that promises them they'll be the starter, that promises them they'll get playing time, that makes all these commitments to them. Dabo's not going to promise a starting spot. Dabo's not going to promise that someone can come in and immediately be a number one wide receiver, a number one linebacker, a number one defensive line. He's not going to make, that's not the guy he is. That's not the commitments he makes. That's not the promises he makes. He doesn't do that for freshmen. He doesn't do that for incoming prospects. He's not going to do that for a transfer over guys that are at his university. No, he's going to come in and he'll say, look, I promise you'll have a fair chance. I promise you'll have an opportunity to fight for it. I promise you'll be able to make a difference and you'll be able to have a chance to fight for that starting spot, but I'm not just going to give it to you. And transfers don't like to hear that. Transfers want to be promised that they're going to be the number one. Why would they go somewhere that's going to make them work for it when they're being offered somewhere over a place that they're already going to be the starter day one? It's a different culture. It's a different vibe. And Dabo's not going to adjust to that. I don't think Dabo's not adjusting to the transfer portal. I think he's not adjusting to the different characteristics and the different culture vibe that's present in modern day college football players. I hope that makes sense. I hope that lands. I'm not talking trash. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm not trying to be this old traditional guy. No, that's not who I'm trying to be. I'm just saying Dabo is not this guy that's like, we're not going to use the transfer portal. No, he brought in transfers last year. Dabo's the kind of guy that says, if I bring in a transfer, it's got to be someone that matches the Clemson mindset, that matches the Clemson culture. It's got to be someone that loves the university as much as we do, and he's going to come in not just being ready to hand it a spot, but come in ready to fight for a spot. And so he's very selective. I think the culture of the modern day transfer, most of them are not that mindset. A lot of them don't match the Clemson environment, don't mesh with the Clemson vibe. A lot of them don't believe in that characteristic of, okay, yeah, you were really successful in the Big Ten, or you were really successful in the G5 conference. What about the ACC? What about this Power 4 conference? That doesn't mean you're instantly going to be a starter. You've got to work for it. So the reasons I love the take is because he stays true to who he is. He stays faithful to exactly who he is. And I love that about him. In just a moment, we're going to talk about the other side. As much as we love it, there is still some stuff that's like, really, that's where you're going? We'll talk about that and more in just a moment.
Guess what, guys? It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Guess what? The NBA playoffs are here. Anthony Edwards is absolutely killing it. And plus, if you're into the NHL, we got some slap shots you can bet on. The Carolina Hurricanes are in the second round right now. So I need you to go to that bad boy and check it out. Because here's what new customers can get. $150. Yes, you heard that correctly. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Let me repeat that. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. And I'm telling you, you can bet on anything from the spreads, the money lines, player props, and much, much more. I'm telling you, $150, oh my God, you can win some money. All you got to do is pay attention and go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. The website is FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
And here we are on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, so as a reminder, we're talking about this Dabo quote when it comes to his take on transfer portal. Let's read it one more time. Here's what he said. When asked about if he was going to bring in transfers and why he didn't, he said, it wasn't really necessarily an intentional thing. There are a couple guys that we looked at, but they've got to love you too. Honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole class of guys who will transfer in from high school. We like our guys. We like our starters. I want to focus in on that first part. There are a couple guys we looked at, but they've got to love you too. When I hear that, this is the part that I'm like, I don't like that. I don't like the fact you just said that. Look, common sense tells you, not everyone's going to love Clemson, right? There's going to be great prospects out there, great transfers out there that have their heart set on Alabama because they want to go to Alabama. Or think of basketball, for example. R.J. Godfrey just left Clemson to go to Georgia. I don't think it's necessary that he likes Georgia more. It's just it's where he's from. It's where his dad played. That makes sense. There's going to be transfers out there that just don't mesh with Clemson, that don't love Clemson. But the fact that he's asked, Dabo is specifically asked, why did you not bring any transfers in? And one of the main things he says is, we offered a couple guys, but they just didn't want us. Red flag. Like, pause, right? Pause, brother, right? What's happening? What is that? I think that is really concerning because when you look at Clemson, when you look at who we are, they've got the resources. They've got the facilities. They've got success in the past 8 years. They've got 2 national champions in the past 8 years. They've been to the playoffs more than almost any other team, I think, other than like 2 or 3 since the playoffs started. Like, they have success. If you have facilities, if you have success, if you have the NIL there, if you have a recent history, if you have a prominent coach, top 2, top 3 coach in all of college football, and you get 0 transfers because they don't like you, that's a big red flag. That makes you start to wonder, well, what's going on? What's causing you to have these feelings? What's causing these transfers to not want to come play for you? What's causing that? What's causing this the transfers to not like Clemson? Is there holes that we're not seeing? Is there problems that we're not seeing? Is it a culture issue? Is it something that's causing behind the scenes transfers not wanting to come in? Like, what's the reason they don't like Clemson? If it's just a thing like R.J. Godfrey going to Georgia because his dad played there, all right, we get that. That's going to happen. But if you tell me you got 0 transfers and one of the reasons is just that people didn't want to come to Clemson, that's worrisome. I don't think that's what it is, but when you hear those comments, you can't help but think, do people just not like, is there something bigger going on behind the scenes that we're worried about? I think it causes a little bit of worry to happen. It causes a little bit to be like, ugh, like there's a serious concern. There's a serious feeling of like, should we be worried about that? Should we be worried? So that's the reason this quote, it doesn't bother me. I know some people have talked about like, oh, bringing in high schools as transfers. Nah, that was funny. When I hear this quote that Dabo put out, when I hear what he said regarding this, I love that he stayed true to who he is. I love that he kept Clemson University and its culture at the prominent focus. It bothers me a little bit and it scares me that no one else liked Clemson, according to what he said. And the last thing that people are focusing in on is that comment of we're bringing in a whole class of transfers from high school. People are taking that so seriously. It's like, he doesn't understand it's a difference. Guys, Dabo Sweeney, if you know anything, he's gonna joke. He's gonna push buttons. He's gonna make you think. He's gonna be like, if you don't know me, you don't know what I'm gonna talk about. Like, he's just messing around. Obviously, he knows that there's a difference between prospects and transfers. He knows there's a difference in bringing in a recruiting class and bringing in a transfer group, right? That's very different. He understands that. That was just the end of like, I'm a joke with you. It was just him. That was his personality. So overall, this quote, I love it. There's parts of it that bothers me. There's parts of it's like, really? That's what you're going to go with? But anyway, that's our take on his quote that he said recently at the ACC spring meetings on ACC PM. But with that being said, we're going to keep moving on. We now have a segment that we do every Thursday called Turbulent Thursday. What that is Turbulent Thursday is something that is, we look at Twitter, we look at X, we're over there all the time. You can follow us over on Twitter by going right over here at I am John Bivens. You can follow us over on there. But what it is we scroll through Twitter, we scroll through X, we look at social media, and we look for some hot takes, whether good, bad, indifferent. Last week we talked about some that if come true, talking about our defensive safeties, those come true. It's a great hot take. If it talks about our wide receivers, they said it's one of the best in the nation. Great hot take, right? Sometimes we're gonna have some takes that are like, really? This is the ignorant take you're taking. So today we got two hot takes that we found that we want to talk about. The first one, I'm not going to say who said it because I don't want to throw any shade, but we found this tweet online, and I'm going to summarize what he said. I'm not going to read it word for word. For basically what he's saying is he says, no shade towards Dabo, no shade towards him, but I think it's time to retire. If you're not going to get with the times, it's probably best to just step away. I'll always love Dabo, but sometimes you just got to call a spade a spade. Right? Like some of y'all might hear that and be like, yeah, get rid of him. I can't stand this take. I don't understand how you look at the success that Dabo Sweeney has brought to Clemson. There has never been ever a time in Clemson history where we've had this much success in this period of time. He's had how many straight double-digit wins? He's had how many straight 9-win seasons? He had how many ACC championships? How many playoff appearances? How many national championship appearances? He's doubled. We went from one national championship in our whole history to he's won 2 in the past 8 years, since 2016, 2018, and he's made it to 2 others. Dabo has success, and you can't say because we're in this new phase of transfers that because he doesn't want to become someone who he's not, you want to fire him. That, like, there's the line, like we talked about earlier on, he is who he is. There's other coaches out there that adjust who they are. They change who they are. They change their aspect. They change their thoughts. They change their feelings. There's other people out there like that, and I don't want to coach like that. I'd rather have a Dabo Sweeney who's not bringing in transfers but still having a good recruiting class, still a great coach. I'd rather have that than a coach that flip-flops who they are and who their personality is based on what's popular at the time. The fact that you want to fire him already because of this year, because we had a 9-win season last year, what do you want? You fire him, who do you bring in? The only other coach in college football right now that's worth an argument of better than him is Kirby Smart at Georgia. Kirby's not leaving Georgia for Clemson, right? That's not going to happen. So if you fire Dabo, who are you going to bring in? You're going to fire him because he won 9 games instead of 11? Look, college football is a program where you're not going to have a championship every single year. Now, we should have played better last year, and we've talked about that. We agree with that. But wanting to fire him over this, that's jumping off the cliff way too early. That's getting out of the car for something small, right? That's not a good take. That's a hot take. That's an emotional take. That is a ignorant take. So I don't believe in that. Not trying to throw shade. Everybody's got their opinion. If you agree with that, man, comment below and tell me why I'm wrong. I'd love to have a conversation with you. But when I hear that, especially the tweet that I read, when I read it, it was kind of like, man, you say you love him, but then you're calling for his head. I don't get that. I don't get the people you're speaking love out of one mouth, or one side of your mouth, hate out the other. I don't respect that, right? If you're going to respect the guy and speak love to him, but be like, oh, yeah, maybe it's time for a better movement, that's different. But if you're like, I love him, but get him out of there, that's speaking out both sides of your mouth. I don't understand that. So that's our first turbulent take. In just a moment, we're going to be back, and we're going to talk about our second turbulent take regarding Clemson football. Welcome back to Locked On Clemson Podcast. So, first take was that. The first take was that tweet about Dabo getting fired. Not time, right? Not time for him to get fired or retire. Not at all. But going on to the second take, going on to the second hot take, it's another graphic. We saw it over on Twitter. Someone put this out, and it's the ACC predictions. So let's just walk through this together. Let's walk through these predictions. So someone put out there, right? They put out there that this is there for our audio listeners. There's a graphic, and it has a Virginia Tech player on the front of the page, and then has the rankings of the top 8 in the ACC. And so this is what their rankings were. In 8th place for the ACC football predictions, they have Virginia Cavaliers going 6-6. 7th place, they have 7-5 SMU. 6th place, they have Clemson Tigers going 8-4, 5-3 in the conference. 5th place, Miami 9-3, 5-3 in conference. 4th place, NC State 9-3, 6-2. 3rd place, Louisville 9-3, 7-1. 2nd place, 10-2 at 7-1 FSU, and then ACC champions, the Virginia Tech Hokies. Their serious take right now is that the Virginia Tech Hokies are the ACC champions this year. Look, let's not even say, let's say Virginia Tech comes out and has a great season, has a great year. There's no way Clemson's finishing 6th in this conference. There's absolutely no way. For that to happen, the top 5 would have to have better programs, or Florida State would have to have a better year than they have other year, except for last year. Louisville had a good year last year, but no, that's us finishing 6th after last year getting 8 wins, the lowest amount of wins in like over 10 years for at Clemson football. That's not going to happen. That's just this was posted, and look, some of y'all might be listening and being like, "Oh, that was just posted by a Virginia Tech fan. You can't take that seriously." No, a Clemson fan tweeted this. I saw a Clemson fan tweet this post, which is part of the reason I'm like, "What are we doing? What is even going on?" So, hot take, not the best take right there. I'd be embarrassed to post that if I was on Twitter. But anyway, that's what they did. That was the take that they went with. So those are Turbulent Thursdays. That's what our Turbulent Thursdays are. Those 2 takes right there. So hot takes, right? 1, Dabo should be fired or retire, and 2, Virginia Tech's going to win the ACC and Clemson's going to come in 6th. So there it is. There's our Turbulent Thursdays. We're going to end the episode with another graphic that we're going to put out that we'll talk about it. Hey, Joel Klatt, if any of you know him, he's a big reporter. He focuses on college football. He's a good guy. He put out his list of the top 5 college football atmospheres in the nation. The top 5 college football atmospheres in the entire nation. I'm not going to speak to this and say, no, that this should be higher, this should be lower. I'm not going to speak to that. I'll only say that for one of them, just because I haven't been to 4 out of these 5 environments. I haven't been to 4 out of these 5 stadiums, so I can't speak yes or no, higher or lower to them because I haven't been there. But I can speak about historically and about national record or hit their record and what people see them as. I can speak about that. So what he has is the best college football atmosphere. He has LSU with Death Valley. I mean, that's electric, right? We know that. I've never been there, but everyone knows. You go to the other Death Valley, not the real one. Real one's in Clemson. But the other Death Valley, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough environment. Number 2, he has Penn State. This is the only one that I'm like, really this high? If it's a night game, it's number 1. If it's a night game, it is number 1, hands down. If it's an away game, though, or I mean, if it's a day game, like a noon game, I don't know. I don't think they bring the exact same energy level between day and nighttime. That's just my only critique with Penn State. But nighttime, for sure, one of the best environments in the nation. Number 3, they have Alabama, Roll Tide up there. I mean, again, another program like LSU, you know it's going to be tough. Part of my issues with LSU and Alabama being 1 and 3 is they're up there, and these are programs that are very recently good. Alabama's been great forever. LSU has this recent success coming on since 2019, kind of off a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to, I put a little bit more respect on the teams, on like universities that have outstanding environments and atmospheres, and their team isn't performing up to how they should, up to expectations. So we'll talk about our recommendation or replace that in a second. But number 4, they have Oregon Ducks on here. That's one I was kind of talking about. Oregon had a couple off years. They're back good now. A couple off years where it was like, all right, they're not playing as good as they have been, as they can be, and they're still selling out. They're still having great environments. environments. So they're up there. And then they have Clemson at 5. Clemson Death Valley's at 5. The reason this is 5 is I guess they put the other 3 above it or other 4 above it for specific reasons. But when you look at winning percentage, when you look at how Clemson has protected its home field, it has a better record than any other school except for one in the nation in the past 6 years defending on their home field. They are crazy good at home. If you're going to Death Valley, good luck beating them. Like, that is a hard environment to play in. It's loud from noon o'clock to an 8:30 to kickoff. They're loud. They show up. The crowd is full every single time, every single game. So it's up there. It's deserving. The one that I would replace, I would put Virginia Tech on here. I think Virginia Tech is one of the best overall environments in all of college football, but honestly, in all of college in general. I think when it comes to college in general, it is one of the best environments everywhere because whether or not they're good, whether or not they're bad, they have an electric entrance with Enter Sandman, right? They have an electric entrance there, but every single game they're sold out. They have a lot of people there. Their environments are going. Their student section's booming. It's hard to play basketball. It's hard to play baseball. It's hard to play everything at Virginia Tech. So honestly, and they don't have the success to back it up really. So that is why I would put Virginia Tech higher up here, just because their fans are always there. But anyway, that is Joel Klatt's top 5 college football atmospheres. And that, with all that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson's podcast. Hey, tomorrow's episode, they announced the opening time, the kickoff time for our opener on August 31st against Georgia. Not exactly what we expected. We'll talk about that and so much more on tomorrow's episode. Hey, let me know your thoughts on today. Reach out to me on Twitter at I am John Bivens. Hit me up over there. You can send me DMs, tweet me, whatever you want to do over there. We love to hear from you there. On YouTube, drop some comments. Let us know your thoughts. Let's talk about it. Let's dive into a conversation regarding everything we've talked about. Dabo in the portal, those hot takes we talked about, and the college football atmospheres. Let us know what your thoughts is on all of that. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to this podcast, wherever you're getting your podcast at. If you're watching on your YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're on audio, consider going to video just once and subscribe. Help us get to that goal of 1,000 subscribers. That'd be grateful. But if you're listening on audio, also make sure you like and follow on whatever platform you're on. That way, if you subscribe and follow, every day your first listen can be here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, and you can join the elite crew of our everyday listeners here on Locked On Clemson. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow in the next episode, but until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and as always, go Tigers.